Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky here, and today I'm with Bobby Gillespie. Bobby, welcome.
Thank you, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for a while. Really excited to have you on the podcast, Bobby. And for those who aren't familiar with you and your company's work, you are a creative director, brand strategist. You started your company Propr Design in 2014, which is a branding agency based in Baltimore, and you've won many awards, including Best Branding Agency, Best Digital Marketing Agency in your city. So you've accomplished a lot. You've been working with some really fantastic clients. And I feel honored to, kind of witness some of the growth and what you've been doing recently.
Yeah.
It's been pretty amazing. But let's kind of go back in time a little bit and just kind of explain, how did you get started before you even entered the world of working at other design and kind of branding firms, which I know that's kind of part of the story from before you started your own company. But what were you doing? Like, how did you get into the world of design, multimedia, art, all that kind of stuff? Was it right out of university, or is that what you were studying in university? Kind of take us back to the early days of Bobby
My
G.
goodness. Okay. Yeah, man. So very atypical journey for me. I was always a very creative kid. I was fortunate to have parents that recognized that, and they stuck me in art school around Philly. I grew up in Philly. From an early age, they saw that I really loved to draw and just be involved with art. And when I got through high school, I had not the best guidance. I took every art class I could take, weekends, summers. It was all the time. But my guidance counselor pushed me, or no, my guidance counselor pushed me nowhere. My art teacher suggested I go to University of Chicago for medical illustration, and that didn't appeal to me. And in my mind, I felt that there was only fine arts. I didn't realize that there was design and illustration and animation. And it took until 3 years of college as a science major, which I like, not love. I on a road trip to Florida for spring break, we stopped at Savannah College of Art and Design, and I had this major epiphany that there were creative careers that I could really sink my teeth into that weren't fine art. So I wouldn't be, selling paintings on the corner.
Yeah.
When I got back to school, that's when everything changed, and I really spent the rest of I guess it was the second half of the year, focusing on going to art school and finding, kind of pursuing that path in the creative.
I can't imagine you doing medical illustration like that. Just
No, not me.
so
Yeah.
I mean, you mentioned your parents that they really encouraged you, guided you, towards exploring that artistic side. You're a parent yourself. What advice, would you offer to parents, people who are running consulting businesses and agencies and so forth, who have young ones? Like, is there anything that you look at from what your parents did, that what they did with you, that either you feel worked really well or didn't work, and maybe things you're also now incorporating with your kids?
You have me reflect here. The one thing that I really set the tone for myself, and I try to do it with my kids, is get them to observe. Right, like it's watching and pay attention and seeing how things are. That applies to life in general and business and everything. So observing, seeing, thinking about it, and then using, if your kids seem to be drawn towards creative, whether it's drawing or coloring or telling stories or making up stories, encourage that creativity, because, when we're kids, we're encouraged to play. And when we're grown-ups and we engage in something that we would call play, it's kind of looked down upon. And that's the opposite of how you learn. You learn by doing, you learn by exploration, you learn by making mistakes, and you learn by observation.
Yeah.
So, push into all of those different experiences. I have 3 college degrees, right? That's a lot of different experiences. I had a lot of jobs that I look back on and hated who I worked for, but loved what I did. Those are great experiences where I observed a lot. And when the time came to have the opportunity to lead people and then start my own company, I learned a lot about what not to do So when I had the opportunity, I treat people well, and I give them autonomy to learn and explore and make mistakes. And it's really the constant pursuit of one, curiosity, but two, like learning, right?
Yeah.
So like those are very related. And anytime you can encourage and foster those characteristics in people, children, adults, anybody, like do it. It's worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, very good advice there. So now let's move forward. You, after kind of college, university, you studied, you got these degrees. You also then worked at kind of a senior designer at multiple companies. Talk us through kind of that experience. Like what your time working at other organizations before you went out on your own and started Propr Design. What are some of the kind of the key lessons or insights or experiences that you picked up that if you look back now, you feel like, yeah, those really helped me to start my business or to kind of be who I am today? Like what was most meaningful or most impactful for you during those years of working for somebody else before you started your own thing?
It was, I think back as to like my favorite bosses, and unfortunately, none of them were in my industry. One of my favorite bosses all the time was somebody who ran concessions at the Academy of Music in Philadelphia, where I was a bartender for a while. He just treated people well. He didn't judge. He held, we were all accountable for, our bank and our bar, and, and he trusted us. He taught us what we needed to know, and then he trusted us. And my first job in the industry was at a .com back in like '99, and I got that experience again. There was no boss, so it was quite different. We were all kind of autonomous, but we were all accountable to one another, working on a common goal. And we're all very young, in our 20s, early 20s, wearing like shorts and flip flops to work and showing up at 10 o'clock and headed to the beach on Friday. Like, it was so ideal. And it, there was a taste of something with both of those experiences that I was seeking throughout my career until I started my own company. I wanted to be treated like an adult. I wanted to have autonomy. I wanted to be empowered to make decisions. I wanted to have the ability to make mistakes and be curious and learn, and not be focused on line items and creating red tape and complexity. So it was like a drug, I would say, that I was fiending for about 15 years, and it took till I got fed up with the industry and how other agencies were operating to foster that culture and commitment to that lifestyle when I started my own company.
So, okay, I want to now really zone in or kind of zoom in on that
Yeah.
part. So you said you were actually thinking about starting your own company for many years. That was kind of playing in the back of your
Well,
mind.
not necessarily thinking about it, but I had career goals. And when I moved to Baltimore, I kind of fast tracked those goals because it was just a new town and a new
Yeah.
chance, a new start. And I wanted to be, a senior art director or creative director of an agency. And within, 10 years of, 4 years of moving here, I had that job. And when that kind of ran its course and it was time for me to go, that's when I was like, what do I do now? And in hindsight, I've been running my company for almost 7 years, but in hindsight, I was always being sort of groomed for this, to be an entrepreneur, to be, the owner of a company. But at the time, I was like, I never imagined this once in my life.
Right.
But I always sought that leadership role. I always wanted to bring about change and question why we did things the way we did them, because there's got to be a better way. This kind of sucks. And it was very, I became unemployable because of my ideas and opinions and motivation to act on them.
What were people around you saying at that time, Bobby? I mean, were people supportive? Did people think like, no, you should
Yeah.
just stick in the corporate world? What were those around you telling you at that time?
Well, how the world acts and says you have to have, stay at your job and be a good employee. But I never care what anyone thinks. You asked me earlier what my parents were in terms of supporting. They support me, and they're not necessarily sure what I do, but that's okay. But
Yeah.
they're incredibly proud of me, and I think my family's proud of me. And but when I left my last job, people were like, "What are you going to do? What are you going to do?" And I was like, "I don't know, but I'm really excited about it." And it was a 50-50 split whether I was going to get a job or start my own company. And some things had to fall in place with like my family and whatnot. But every day the needle moved more towards me starting my own company, because I felt that my motivation comes from internally. So I just need support from my family, and them to believe in me, because I don't need someone to push me at all. But I felt that there was a better way to run an agency. And if I was going to, bring my all to it, I might as well make my dreams come true, not someone
Mhm.
else's.
Yeah.
So, but the pressure is to fall in line. The pressure is to have 3 years here, 5 years there. And that's a fallacy in my eyes.
So when you started Propr Design, what was one of the biggest challenges? What was something that maybe was unexpected, or what were you kind of, banging your head against
Mm.
in the early days?
Well, there's a piece of advice I give to anybody who listens, is that when you start your own company after you had some success, you don't have to start over. You don't have to earn your keep again. So pick up where you left off, because you earned it, right? So, but having the confidence to make those decisions and charge what you should charge, and go after the clients that you best fit with, like that's difficult early on. And for me, it was the biggest challenge was separating myself from my history. So where I
Mhm.
worked before, right? I had to regain my reputation and myself. So that was my initial focus. But one of the most surprising and gratifying aspects of running a business is being able to change people's lives, and impacting our clients, focusing on the service and the relationship is
Mhm.
really different. But also my team, like being able to offer them kind of what I never got through my career. And so I started my own company, a place where they're treated like adults, and they're respected, and they have autonomy, and they're empowered, and they hold one another accountable, all those things
Yeah.
that we all, the simple things we want. And in the first few years of starting the company, before I had any employees, it was a lot of like knowing what not to do through my experience, but not necessarily having a roadmap for what to do, or how to accelerate through the different sort of corporate lifestyle cycles that we all kind of experience,
Yeah.
and feeling comfortable and being aggressive with it and asking for help.
So I want to take us back for a minute. You mentioned the early days, right? That one of the challenges was how to take all of your years of experience and kind of the expertise, and figure out how to really position that or
Yeah.
focus that. How did you navigate that? Because working in other companies or branding agencies, design firms, I mean, you're going to work on a lot of different types of projects, different industries. What was the path like for you in terms of deciding where to place your focus and kind of really what you wanted your company to be known for?
Well, I'm big on identifying weaknesses and working tirelessly to convert them to strengths.
Can you give
And
an example of that, or something that you guys did?
sure. So when I started the company, the director of sales, where I was the creative director, or he was a senior sales guy, a good friend of mine. Um, he was like, dangling it out. He's like, "Should I come? Should I come?" And I said, I resisted that, because I want to know what it takes to be successful in a business dev and sales role, so I can hold people accountable for it. And I don't want people to, no one sells me and my company and our services better than I do. And that still holds true all these years later. But it's, I'm big on empathy and understanding, and it's challenging for me to be able to hold someone accountable in those roles when I've never done it. So I wanted to, sell hundreds of thousands of dollars in projects, and I did, and I continue to do that. But that's not my primary focus. That's just, because we don't sell, we consult.
Right. And what about, I mean, so there's a lot of branding companies out there, right? A lot of design companies out there. So clearly, I mean, you've been very intentional in creating differentiation between what you guys do and what others do, because that's one of the reasons that you left the industry, because you didn't like what you saw was going on. So
correct.
How have you I want to make this very tangible for people. I mean, you could focus on working with any type of company in the world that needs branding or design services. What's been the path of choices that you've taken to essentially differentiate Propr Design? Like how did you in the past, and then how do you now think about differentiation and think about who to focus on in terms of being an ideal client for your company?
Dude, Mike, I think about this. I mean, literally nonstop. This is what I think about all the time. So positioning our clients and being able to, help clarify their messaging and who's their ideal client. Like we I'm eating our own dog food on that nonstop. So, who's our ideal client? Is it a vertical or is it horizontal? And I would say it's a little bit of both. And how do we come to that? Well, the formula is, I like to say, the formulas are similar, but the variables are quite unique. So first thing you gotta do is identify which variables are right for you and your company. So the variables for us are, while niching down into a vertical, meaning industry or size or something like that, is very advantageous in terms of focusing your finite marketing resources, which is in a very infinite game. But we look for need. So for us, it's what is their need, but also we use sort of that mid-market size as being able to deliver based on a budget that works for us.
Right.
So, and I mean, how did we come there? It's really, where the opportunities kind of led us early on. I come from, a heavy digital marketing, consumer product and e-commerce background, but, we do a little bit of all that. But what we focus on, which makes us different, is not jumping into implementation. So we start with brand strategy. And when our clients don't have one, or they're struggling with it, or it's up here, well, then that's where I step in and I facilitate what we call the brand clarity workshop, is where we extract that from their heads and make it a very tangible piece to guide, roadmap their future, right? So what was missing when I started my company is now something that we provide our customers, and to take their insecurities and whims and egos out of the equation and focus on what's best for their brand and what's best for their target audiences, then it makes it very easy to evaluate every decision they're making as an organization, not just on design, not just on copywriting, not just on photography, but on hiring, and also, where they should seek opportunities. So it's very empowering, this approach to our customers. You can go anywhere and get a great website, right? And what's your website cost? Well, what's a house cost? But determining where they should best invest their money and their resources and focus their energies, we help them understand that to where they see their priorities as clearly as we do.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. And I know you and I have had many conversations kind of on that topic, because it is a very powerful differentiator, right? Most or many design companies and branding firms, if a client or a company approached them and said, hey, like we need a website, they should say, sure, yeah, like we can build you one. They just get started. But what you do is you actually slow things down and really help them to identify, well, like, let's figure out first, why do you need a website? Like, where's it coming from? You look at making sure that the foundation is very strong. It's the same mindset that we have as we work with consultants. People will say, well, I need more leads. I need, to improve my marketing. Well, great. Okay. But let's actually, do you know who your ideal client is? Like, do you have a message that will resonate with them? Because if not, you could do all the marketing in the world and throw lots of money at it, but it's not going to get you the result that you want. So that foundation is so critical. And I think it's very powerful in the way that you guys are doing it. So let's come back to the early part of your career, and then we'll jump forward to kind of a bit more of what's happening right now in the business. When did you know or have a feeling like, okay, I've made it? Like I don't need to go look for a job anymore. Like I have confidence. It might not be that the things are going 100% the way that you want all the time, but just that feeling of like, yeah, like I've got this. When did that happen?
Wow. That's a really good question. And I don't know if I had a moment where, I remember a couple of years ago for the first time, when we were still billing hourly. We don't do that at all anymore, but we were still billing hourly, and I was on the beach and I had people working while I was on vacation. And I said to my sister-in-law, I was like, the company's making money without me right now. That was really interesting, but that was nice. But I think what the transition coming out of 2020, we all know 2020, into 2021, around the new year, I had the realization that, this company is almost running on its own now. And I've been talking to a lot of my friends and colleagues and team about this lately. It's like, if the company was to slow down, I would have to consciously sabotage it. And that was a very, very sort of just indescribable feeling, because that doesn't make sense in the way the universe works, right? But the one variable in there that makes it make sense is people, right? So your marketing, people are aware of you, you're having a consistent message, you're having a consistent impact on your clients, you're making it a level of revenue, and it's increasing, and all these things are happening at the same time. So it's people selling to people, providing services to people. And that was when, the whole flywheel concept was like, this thing's humming. We don't have to push as hard. And 2020, we had to push super hard, but it turned out to be our best year, despite all the nonsense and sadness and pain and suffering. It was our best year. And 2021 is now our best year. But it was a sensation that, like, man, this is all clicking. Yeah. And, it was after just over 6 years in business that happened. And I'll never forget it. And I won't let it stop spinning.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that. And I mean, you're a really amazing person to work with, Bobby. And I mean, you're in our Clarity coaching program. And I remember you posted, you shared kind of this thought about where things were in the business, like during that period of 2020, where I think a lot of business owners were just feeling things maybe weren't moving at times as quickly as you'd want, right? Clients were delaying things. Like there was a period before the new year where many people, even though they were having good years, at times, like, just, it was, the ups and downs of business.
Yeah.
But you were very open with that. And I really respect that you were open with sharing what was on your mind. And I want to know, because you have this mindset, which I think it's just unstoppable. It's something that I really respect. I want you to share with people, because I'm also interested in hearing this from you right now. How do you navigate those times when your mind is telling you, okay, things aren't going the way that I'd like them to go. I'm feeling a little bit stuck. I'm feeling like there's, it's just hard to push through. What have you done? How does your mind work to allow you to push through that and get to new highs?
Well, there's a couple things that we have to come to terms with. And one is the humble factor, right? So when we all realize that a lot of the stuff that we're seeing in the media is BS, meaning that nobody knows what they're doing, right? So a lot of people are insecure or scared to go into business or take a big plunge, because they feel like, these stories of overnight success are real. But the overnight success takes 15 years and $25 million of your parents' money to make it happen, right? So, that's just BS to me. what gets me through it is what also fulfills me with my business. It's relationships. It's keeping it real, right? Being authentic with people, being open and honest with people, just being yourself and saying, I don't know, or saying like, my favorite response to something I don't know is I don't know, but I can't wait to find out. I can't wait to learn more, right? And that's, instead of people saying things like, oh yeah, we can do that, and then scrambling and trying to figure it out and embarrassing themselves, right? So it's just, I appreciate the kind words. Flattery will get you everywhere with me. And, it's really just the authenticity of the relationships, the authenticity of communication, allowing yourself to be vulnerable, because you don't have to front, you don't have to fake it, right? Just be yourself.
But where does that come from, Bob? I mean, like, were you always that way? Is just growing up on the street of Philly that you just, that's like, was there an experience? Or because a lot of people, I mean, I'll speak for myself. Back in the day when I was early stages of building, probably our first or second consulting business, I remember, especially when I was in Japan, over there, being surrounded by different culture, people much older than I was, and language that I was really trying to work to improve on, all that kind of stuff. Like I've felt at many times extreme vulnerability, and self-esteem and lack of confidence, but I always push through because I think that comes back to my upbringing around sports and just really trying to, living in a different country and then coming in and feeling like an outsider. I always want to prove myself. And so that's kind of where I channel it through sports, then channel it into business. But I wasn't open about that vulnerability. Not until years later did I actually start to expose and tell my story, or, tell our story as a company. And so I'm wondering, where does that come from you? Like, were you always that way, where you just kind of say it as it is, or is that through some experiences or through trainings or something else? Where does it come from?
Well, so like, let me contextualize it a little bit. Like, I feel that at this, stage in my life and my career and my business, that it affords me that ability for, extreme vulnerability. It hasn't always been that case. There's been great suffering, but I've always been very opinionated, and I've always, marched to the beat of my own drum. And I'm a middle kid. I grew up in Southwest Philly, rough and tumble neighborhood, and I went to Catholic school where they tried to quite literally beat you into being a follower, someone that was there to take orders. And they tried, but they failed, because I had my own ideas. And what made me a challenge when I was in the wrong role at companies was that I had my own ideas. So I'm very confident in that. I like to give the advice that be the smartest person in the room. And obviously that should never be the case. But what I mean is be the most prepared, right? So just like you, I got tons of books behind me. I got boxes of books all over the office in my house. It's that, that insatiable curiosity and seeking self-improvement to be better.
Yeah.
But also, be proud of yourself. I mentioned being humble, but also be proud of yourself. Be proud of what you accomplished. Be proud of your ideas, and don't worry. I don't give a shit what anyone thinks, and I've never really cared what anyone thinks. Even though in the neighborhood I grew up with, I knew what everyone thought because they said it, yelled it, or beat it into me. But I always had my own ideas and own way to do things.
Yeah, you just made a really important point, which I think many entrepreneurs and certainly entrepreneurial consultants are guilty of, which is we tend to focus too much on the future and not enough on what we've accomplished. And I don't mean to drag the past behind us and
right.
spend all our time like thinking about what went wrong. I mean, just look at what you've actually accomplished over the last 30 days or 1 year or 5 years. Because so often we're thinking about like that next goalpost into the future, and we're not actually appreciating what we've accomplished to the point where we are today. And so being present, appreciating the past, as you said, being proud of
your legacy.
Yeah.
I read a book like, I don't know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I'm not sure when, and it mentioned like people thinking about their legacy too late in life. And it's like, what's the legacy you're creating for yourself, right? And having things like being able to have my kids at the office, like that warms my heart to no end. And have them grow up and talk about that, long past I'm gone.
Yeah.
And the legacy of books all around, the legacy of helping, the legacy of impacting, empowering people. And that's, you look back on that, like you said, and you should be proud of what you have accomplished this for. But also, some of us have that innate ability to have a vision for, a future state that, even fewer of us have the guts to make that future state a reality.
So let's talk about the business today, and how your role has changed, because you have a team, and I know you've worked really hard at cultivating a really great culture among the team. So I want to hit on a few different things relating to this. The first is, how has your role changed over the years? Because you started, it was Bobby, right? How did you go from you to, like, just take us through some of the different hires that you made, and also how you start, based on those hires, how your mindset changed as you put those different people in place to grow the business.
Well, it's like, many in our predicament have experienced the litany of hats we have to wear. And eventually those hats, it's no longer good enough to wear that hat, right? And that no longer good enough applies to everything. Sometimes things just need to be good enough, but when they're no longer good enough, you need to up your game there. So over the past 3 years, I hired a designer first. She worked as a contractor, but then she was my first full-time employee. And building that relationship and her helping me grow and let go, right? I'm a designer. I don't design anymore, right? So
wait, let's. I'd be remiss if we just glossed over that point, right? Because that is such a sticky area for so many people to get to where you are, knowing that you have that deep expertise, knowing that you're, in your mind, you're probably the best person to do that. So here you are, right? Trained as a designer, doing design work. And then today you don't really do design, right? You give direction and you work with your team. But what was that like? Was that an easy thing for you to hand over, or did you spend
it was not easy.
Take us through the mindset and the kind of the thought process and the battle that maybe went through your mind at that time.
Well, it's easy when it's someone else's company, right? When I was a creative director, I could hire somebody and then direct them.
Sure.
But there's very little risk. It's not as scary. But with my own company, you feel that your reputation's at stake, right? And what we talk about, like I mentioned, good enough for us is up here, right? Really high bar. But finding the people that are aligned with what I care about most, they care about it too. And that's the most important thing. Being able to get out of that and let go. I mean, it's a trust issue, right? But also hey, listen, we're the leaders of our company. It's our duty to put our people in a position to be successful. So if they're not successful, it's us.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you do that?
But here's the quick part of that, Mike, is that you trust your gut, you do your due diligence, you make a decision. Then depending on how the situation works out, you act just as quick, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to fix it, remedy it, or remove something from the equation. So you just act quick, right? It's that whole paralysis seeking perfection.
Right.
There is no perfection.
And so what have you found most helpful in your company to kind of vet and qualify to ensure that somebody has the right ingredients, and the right fit for culture? Because it sounds like for you, culture is such a big part of it to bring, and I know for us as well, building our team, thinking about culture, thinking about values, even when we haven't necessarily been as open in sharing our values, we've tended to attract people who do share our values just through our
Funny how it
content,
works, right?
everything we're doing. Yeah. So for you, I mean, is there any kind of words of advice or anything that you found that's really helpful in the hiring process, the team building process? Let's just start with maybe the hiring process first. Anything
Yeah.
on that side?
Again, it's like the same thing. Like you've mentioned values. It all starts with values, right? You compete on values, you attract on values, you build on values, right? Everything else is negotiable and should change over time. Your values are your values, right? So when someone's the wrong fit or a client's the wrong fit, it's because your values aren't aligned, nothing
Mm-hmm.
else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't know what your values are, start there. But when you're hiring folks, be completely honest. Like don't bullshit people. Don't create this fictional environment that is very appealing but complete BS. I've experienced that a million times where I've done all my due diligence to ask all the right questions, and I get the job, and all of a sudden I'm in there. I'm like, this is nothing like they said it was.
Mm-hmm.
So I bounce, right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. If they're lying to you, if they're bullshitting you, if you're bullshitting people, then you're going to get bullshitters that are attracted to that.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're creating, if you identify your values as what's really important to you and you live by them, you abide by them, you work towards,
Yep.
They're aspirational, then you're going to attract the similar people.
And what about to empower your team? I mean, you mentioned that trust is a big factor. Is there anything that you do from a structural perspective? Do you follow a certain kind of, meeting cadence, or do you use a certain process or a system to ensure that your team is getting things done, but also that the overall culture and environment is one that's conducive to people, operating at high levels and everyone's working towards growth? Like, is it just kind of, you're just in constant contact, or do you have any kind of system or process that you found you use with people?
So we have a weekly standing meeting. Everyone's gone virtual. We were all already mostly virtual, but the team's all over the country at this point. Yeah. But we still have the office if anyone wants to come home once it gets cleaned. But we have a standing weekly meeting where we go over projects and we make sure that people have the support they need and the opportunity to ask for help. That's really important. We want people to be accountable, but we also, which includes asking for help. Support goes hand in hand with empowerment. Yeah. We stay out of email, so it's Slack. And if someone's going to be, out of pocket, then it's like, text me or Slack me. I'll get back to you eventually, right? Just managing expectations, but really promoting open communication. Yeah, once everybody went virtual, we started to do the weekly check-in. We allow time for people to bullshit, not lie, but like catch up, and just talk about nonsense or talk about pop culture, or talk about the news. So, it's people, right? So create an environment that your people are comfortable in, create an environment that your people have what they need. Mm-hmm. There's something that we really resist is standardization. Mm-hmm. Because once things become standardized over time, they become dogma. And once they become dogma, they become unquestionable. And that's the worst case scenario. We like beta. So like in the group, we talk about standard operating procedures, SOPs, but we call them BOPs because it's a starting point that we're constantly reflecting on and asking, could this be better? Yeah. And that's really sort of the foundational aspect of my business and how we operate with our clients, is that we don't set anything and forget it. Mm-hmm. We question, can it be better? And then we come with, that's where our creativity comes into play.
Yeah, it's that constant search for improvement, right? Some people call it continuous improvement. It can be small things, can be big things, but oftentimes the small things compound and lead to much bigger things. You mentioned, Bobby, that 2020 was your biggest year, 2021 now going to be your biggest year. If you had to hit on, one or two things that you think had the biggest impact on your business, things that you've done, things that you've learned, what would you say that those things are?
This is a softball one, man. Like, I got to throw love back to the group. It's a lot of, I said this to you a couple of weeks ago, and I think you canned it, and you should. You guys have thought about a lot of the stuff that's new to me. the challenges I'm seeing, the corporate life cycle is very similar journey for a lot of businesses and business owners and consultants. And, you get to these glass ceilings, and then what do? You either stay put, you go backwards, or you break through. Well, that breakthrough requires help, right? So reaching out and asking for help, and finding a community that you feel a part of, that supports you, that's critical to me. Finding anybody, that's why these consultants exist. That's why we're out here, is we're going to help you through this.
Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
But it's also, I think that I hired my first 2 employees last year as well. And that's a major milestone for me because, listen, I went to school for design and multimedia and science, right? What the hell do I know about business? Well, I know it by experience and by reading and other people's experiences. But getting over the hump with making your first hires, that's insanely challenging until you do it.
Yeah.
Then you're like, oh, right, no big deal. So, it's seeking people to help you navigate through the waters, and being appreciative of the relationships that you come across on that journey.
Yeah. Bobby, before we wrap up, I want to make sure that people can learn more about you, your company, see the great work that you guys do. I mean, just really visually appealing. And of course, there's so much more beyond the visuals, right?
Purposeful. Yes.
The brand, but just things look good. So, which is always nice to see, right? And certainly as it should be from a branding, company.
Indeed.
Right?
Yeah.
But where's the best place for people to go to learn more about your work and, and connect with you?
Sure. I mean, obviously our website, right? That's the hub of any marketing activity. And if it isn't, it should be. So our website is Propr, Propr Design, DESIGN.com. We do some social media, but our clients aren't really on social media. Our Instagram is interesting, very visual. I'm very active on LinkedIn myself, which is that Bobby G. And you can get my nuggets that come out, here and there.
Hey, Bobby, should we talk about that for a second? Because you've been doing some really cool stuff on LinkedIn with videos, right, over the last little while. What's been your experience with that? I know we've talked a lot about that, and you've just started. You went from, it seems kind of a very slow start, right, to kind of to that being ready to actually hit jump off the running block. But once you did, it now feels like you're really getting some great momentum with these videos. But what's been your experience, and how are you feeling about it?
It's been great advice. And you guys gave me that advice, and you gave me a framework to follow how to get started. My first video, again, it's like that pursuit of perfection. I think I recorded it. I sent it to an editor. I paid money out, and then I was like, you know what? I could do this in-house and have it be good enough, right? Good enough up here. And then it comes up the topics are already there. They're in the conversations we're having. My team seeing things and like, do a video on this, please. And, it takes me an hour a week to do a video or throw out a meme. And really all we're doing is professing our values, professing our positioning and our thinking and our approach, and offering people, some of our humble words of wisdom to think about things a little bit differently and see a different route than the traditional method of just hiring some folks that are just going to add you into the mix and take your dollars.
I think that's created also, you've seen increased engagement, people contacting you. There's definitely been a business impact that's been beneficial, correct?
Totally, because we're leaders, right? We're leaders in our industry. We're supposed to be, right? So where's the evidence of that? And you can't keep the evidence, on case studies or on your website. You got to put it out there. You got to put your thinking out there. So again, some of the things I say are quite controversial, and damn right they are.
I don't think anybody could have guessed that, Bobby, based on just our conversation at this point. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's helped to be a contrarian, right? And that kind of leads us into interesting waters. But yeah, like you said, like, we give this advice to our clients when they have a team that's all vying for leadership, and it's like, hey, listen, you gotta do 20 posts in a month, and then start doing it like this. Start doing videos. Just keep posting, and it works within the algorithm, so you get more exposure. But also when people are researching you and Googling you to hire you as a consultant or your agency or whatever, like there's a, it starts becoming a deep, archive of good content. And, that never stops giving.
Well, so we'll make sure here, and actually I want to apologize. I think I may have said earlier, Propr Design. It's Propr Design, guys. I left out the R. So we're going to make sure that.
Oh, I thought that was your Vancouver accent, man.
So you thought that's my Canadian accent. I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I may have forgotten the R. Let's just say that. I can't even remember going back now, but just in case I did, I want to give an extra shout out. Propr Design, guys. We're going to have the website linked up in the show notes. Want to encourage you to, if you're not driving, when it's safe, go to the show notes on Consulting Success, click over to Bobby's website, check out all the work that they have put out, their portfolio. And also, you can connect with Bobby on LinkedIn and watch his videos, because he puts out some really great content with, as you said, some ideas that aren't the standard ideas, but that's what makes them interesting. So Bobby, thank you so much for coming on here today. Really appreciate you sharing some of your journey with us, and look forward to talking soon.
Appreciate it, brother. I'll see you soon.